right. How are you all doing? Hopefully, how did everybody do on the test? You don't know yet because I haven't handed it back to you. Were there any surprises? Okay. All right. Well, I hope everybody has taken the third test over chapters 5 and 6. But now we're going to move on. We are like 2/3 through this course, I think. Semester's flying by, isn't it? We do not cover chapter 7 in your textbook, okay? So we go right on to matter of fact, I don't think they have chapter 7 in some of your textbook, do they? Okay? But we are going to start chapter 8, okay? And I like chapter 8 a lot. Chapter 8 to me is a very interesting chapter. What chapter 8 is on, to go to the PowerPoint, it is on, and hopefully again you pulled these off of Angel and have these in front of you. Chapter 8 is on cash and internal controls, okay? Cash and internal control. Sometimes we say a company has an internal control structure. Okay. Do you guys know what an internal control structure of a company is? Any guesses? When you say a company has weak internal controls or strong internal controls. Anybody know what that is? Take a guess. Okay. Internal control structure are the rules that you set up in place to try to protect your assets and promote efficiencies. Okay? Now, let me ask you this. Does anybody here work retail? Does anybody here work retail? Or has anybody here ever worked retail? Okay. Where'd you work, Anna?
The Children's Place.
The Children's Place. What is that?
It's a children's clothing store.
Children's clothing store. Okay. Kara, where'd you work?
Well, I sell retail at my salon, so that kind of
Okay. Okay.
goes with it.
Jake?
Grocery store.
Grocery store.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Did you work somewhere?
I worked at Wild Oats.
Wild Oats. Okay. Okay. Anybody else worked retail?
Grocery store, yeah.
Grocery store again?
Yeah, me too.
You worked at a grocery store? A lot of grocery store, former grocery store employees. Okay, let me ask you this. I'm not sure what the answers will be with this, but did you ever have a situation in the businesses you worked at where there was employee theft going on?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
All the time.
Like what?
Alcohol.
People stealing alcohol? People steal alcohol?
Yeah.
Okay. At the grocery store?
Yeah.
Okay.
Incredibly easy.
Okay. Jake, it was easy?
I mean, if you think about it, it's incredibly easy to... I mean, it's sad, but it is.
What would people do?
Well, like, in my situation, I work in produce, and I've heard of situations where, like, they would take... You know how people come in and get apple boxes for moving and stuff like that? Well, they would take an apple box, like an employee would, and put a six-pack in there, and then close the apple box, and then go out, act like they're taking it out to the customer, and then they throw it in the car.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Brian?
In our basement where we store all the food, we don't have cameras down there, so some people just go down and take those and just hide it and come back up.
There was one camera in the back, and it was just at the where the trucks came in and hauled stuff out. Other than that, there was no other cameras.
Okay. Kara, what about your place? Any employee theft ever? Not too
I'm
much?
the only one there.
You're the
so
only one there? You are on camera, so please
I
don't
pay
admit
for
to any
all of
crimes.
it, so if I steal it.
Did you, Sarah?
No. I mean, sometimes if people would return stuff that they had used, like, we would get to keep it, but that's because, like, we couldn't. Like, sometimes you'd have to send it back to the manufacturer, but sometimes it was just a loss. And
Well, we talked about how I had now let me ask you this. Did the stores you guys worked at, were they more concerned with employee theft or customer theft?
customer.
Was it customer?
I would say employee for grocery store.
Okay. Sometimes it depends on the type of business, okay? But I will tell you, there's a lot of places and a lot of students have confirmed the following, is that their place of employment was much more concerned with employee theft than customer theft. Now, I grew up in a time when the big don't shoplift, you know, they started really cracking down on shoplifting, and they would you know, prosecute you. And I remember as a kid, this always scared me. Not that I shoplifted, but it was just like you were on camera, you were being watched, and all this. But I have heard from a lot of my students that work retail that there's much more employee theft than there is customer theft, because you have access to the basement where there is no camera. You know, have access to all these different places. You know the store and how it operates. Now, internal control structures is the policies that you put in place to try to limit or eliminate those things. Now, it's very difficult. Now, there's some places that you better have a strong internal control structure. There are some places that are more subject to theft if you do not have a strong internal control structure. Can you give me some examples? Best Buy. Okay. Nobody here has ever worked at Best Buy, but I've had students who worked at Best Buy, and theft is one of the strongest or preventing theft is one of the strongest objectives of the company. It's a challenge. It is a challenge. And if you ever go to Best Buy, look up in the sky, and what do you see? There's cameras, right? There's cameras all over the place. Because when people want to steal, typically the things they want to steal are things like booze, electronics, right? Expensive things, okay? Can you think of another type of entity that has strong internal control? That better have strong internal control, because it would be a bank, okay? Nobody here has ever worked at a bank? Okay. Well, when you work at a bank, the more liquid the asset that you're dealing with, and they're dealing with cash, the most liquid of all, you better have strong internal control structures in place, right? Does anybody know anybody who works at a bank? Okay. A lot of times my students will be tellers and stuff, but what they will do is they will do like cash drawer counts, okay, or you know, things like that, to try to, again, eliminate or decrease theft, okay? Where's another place that has unbelievable internal control? A casino.
Oh, yeah.
If you're ever going to steal, don't steal from a casino, okay? Because let me tell you, there are cameras everywhere. They have people, I mean, it is unbelievable. As a matter of fact, the Learning Channel and stuff, have you ever seen these programs that they have on to catch a thief, or to you know, where they show how they catch people in casinos and stuff? I like to watch that stuff. But why are casinos such a target?
Tons of money.
Yeah.
There's just tons of money. I mean, if you go to a casino, you know, you can find a little chip that's this big, and it might be worth $100 or more, depending on the casino, right? You throw that thing in your pocket, it's pretty easy to steal, isn't it? And you can carry it around for a long time. Plus, you know, a lot of times you can cash it in a different casino. I mean, they have to be very, very astute in their internal control, or they're going to get stolen from, right? Okay. So there was a couple people that there wasn't theft at their place, and you said there wasn't at yours, Sarah?
No, they paid everybody really well, and we did a lot of like team building stuff, and so I think
You all loved
everybody
each other.
was happy. Yeah.
Okay. It was
Wild Oats before it was Whole Foods on 119th and.
okay. What about employee theft or customer theft?
Some people would take like one bite out of something, or eat half of it and then return it.
Yeah, I do that a lot.
So there were some.
Pick up an apple, put
There
it
were
down.
like a few culprits that did that all the time, but our policy was that we would take anything back. Like
Really?
you could return anything, literally. So.
Okay. All right. Well, that is definitely the exception, not the rule. Most places, if it is a retail, theft, employee and customer theft is something that they have to deal with on a daily basis. Okay. And I think it's a fascinating subject. This whole area. Let's talk a little bit. Let's go to your first slide of your PowerPoints, and let's talk about what is the purpose of internal control. What is the purpose of internal control? Okay? Now, policies and internal control is the policies and procedures managers use to protect their assets, to ensure reliable accounting, to promote efficient operations, and to urge adherence to company policies. Okay? These are the rules that they have in place, all right, to try to prevent this stuff, all right? Now, one of the things that I would do is when I was a financial statement auditor, okay? I was a financial statement auditor, which means I would go into different companies as a CPA, and I would audit the books. And then one of the things that we would do is we would examine their internal control structure. Okay, and we would test it and do all this analysis on it, and then we would talk to the owner or the CEO of the company or whoever, and we would present our findings. And many times what we would find is we would say, hey, got a great company here. However, as you know, one of the things that we do is look at your internal control. And what we have found is you have a couple of people who have way too many responsibilities. Maybe you just have one person doing like everything. Maybe it's a small company. And you've got some lady, and I might say, you know, Barbara seems like a really nice lady, but she is just doing everything. And they'd go, oh yeah, Barbara, she's a great lady. She's been with us for 25 years. I said, do you realize all the stuff she does accounting-wise? I go, who kind of checks on Barbara's work? And it turns out like nobody does. And I would say, you know, that's a really weak internal control. If Barbara wanted to, do you realize the ways that she could steal from you? She could do this or do this or do that or do this. And I said, you know, if you want, my company can work with yours. My firm can work with yours. And we can set up an internal control structure where you guys will be much more safe. Much more safe. Because you're kind of exposed right now. And then what do you think the CEO or the owner of the company would always tell me? I tell you, I cannot tell you how many times it happened. They would say exactly that, Marlon. They'd go, well, Dave, you sure seem like a fine young man, and I really appreciate the analysis that you've done. But let me tell you, Barbara has worked with our company for 25 years. Oh, she is a dear lady. She is a wonderful lady. She plays the organ at the church. She is so sweet. On people's birthdays, she will make them cookies and stuff. And she is a dear woman. I know her husband. I know her kids. I know her grandkids. And I tell you what, there was a guy in the warehouse, Larry, and Larry's mom passed away a couple years ago. And, you know, Barbara went to Larry and just said, you know, Larry, I'm so sorry about your mother. I'll never be able to replace your mother, but Larry, I want you to know that I am here for you. And the way I want you to think of me is, you know, your second mother. And however I can help you in life, if you ever need advice or a shoulder to cry on, or just a good friend, please, Larry, come to me. And that's just the type of woman Barbara is. She is a spectacular human being. And so we don't, you know, I appreciate you thinking that we need internal control, and you're right, those are important things. But luckily at my company, you know, we're like family. And I appreciate it, but I think we'll be okay. Do you know how many times I heard that spiel? All the time. And then I'd come back 2 later. Yeah, Anna.
That's just funny because my neighbor, actually, she was a really nice woman, and she was married, and she had like 4 or 5 kids, and then she had worked for this, I think, a daycare for 25 years, and she'd been running the whole thing, and then it turned out the entire time that she'd been stealing money from them.
Yeah.
So she's now in jail.
That's the deal. That's the deal. Now, she was controller or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
She ran, like, it was like a family-owned daycare, but she ran the daycare for the people.
Yeah.
And did their books and everything for them, and
Taking a little bit here.
yeah, the feds came in and searched her house, and it was...
Now, let me ask you
Pretty
this.
crazy ordeal.
You knew this lady?
Yeah, she lived right next door to us. We
Okay.
knew.
Was she a nice lady?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Did she beat her children in the neighborhood?
No.
No?
No.
She was a sweet lady, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Now,
when
if you
we moved
just...
in, she brought us a nice basket, a welcome basket, and yeah.
And
yards.
if you would have seen this lady in a dark alley at night, would you have been scared of her?
No.
No. Okay. It's so typical. And I guarantee you, if I would have gone to that place of business and said, this lady has way too much responsibilities, she could be doing this, what would they have told me before they found out?
Nope.
We're good, we're fine. And then a couple years later, it all comes out. Okay? It all comes out. I can just tell you of incident over incident. Now, the thing is if you do not want to get arrogant and think that you are beyond something, right? You never want to be so proud or so confident to think, I don't need this sort of internal control protection. You just don't want to, okay? Because history shows these sort of situations all the time. You can pick up the paper at any day and read about this, okay? And it is always not always, but most of the times it is somebody like you described, Anna. And I'll tell you this, I bet you $100 that she had no criminal record before that.
Her husband didn't even know. He had no clue.
He had no clue. I wonder how much she stole.
Yeah.
A lot. I guess they said when they went into her closet, there was just like jewelry boxes of expensive jewelry that had never been worn or touched, and yeah.
And she's in jail now?
Yeah.
For how long?
A very long time.
Okay.
She's in a lot of trouble.
A lot of trouble. Well, it's interesting because, okay, when I give tests here at the college, sometimes people will say, because I give 2 different versions of the test, right? And I put you in a seating arrangement, right? And I don't leave the room while you take the test. And students have sometimes said, duh, what's the problem? Why are you hassling us? Do you think we're a bunch of cheaters? Okay? And here's what I guess I would ask of you. Now, you're going to give me some answers that I'm probably going to disagree with here, okay? But let's say I plucked 100 college students at random from campus. What percentage, now before you answer, let me finish. What percentage of them do you think would cheat? With cheating being defined as this, that they will actively try to look off of people's tests next to them to gain answers, or bring like a little note sheet, crib sheet or whatever, okay? What percentage of those 100 do you think will actively try to cheat if given the opportunity of those 100? What do you think?
80.
You think 80? See, I don't agree with that.
Maybe half.
You say half? Okay. Some people will say all of them or 80. I really don't believe that. I mean, I can tell you this, I'm not a perfect human being, but I never once cheated in college. I never did. Never cheated in high school either. Not because I was afraid of getting caught, but just I just didn't do it. It's the way I was raised. I'd rather get an honest C than a dishonest B.
You never wrote anything on your hand or anything?
Never. I mean, again.
Me neither, but.
No, of course. Not you either, but I've heard of people. No, I mean, I guess here was my deal is, number one, I was always the sort of kid that was afraid that I would be the one who got caught. Okay? And secondly, I just had enough confidence. I mean, this sounds arrogant, but I had enough confidence in my natural ability to do well on things that I didn't feel like I needed to cheat. And but I just didn't do that sort of stuff. Here's the sort of kid that I was. I can remember this story very vividly. But I was 6 years old. My favorite candy, and Halloween is coming up for you all. My favorite candy in the whole world, Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. I love Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. I love everything about Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. I love the color of their wrapper. I love the smell. I love the little jaggedy edge around it. I love everything about Reese's Peanut Butter Cup. And the worst thing is if somebody gives me Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, because I know all of those are going to be my belly before, soon, because I just love them. And when my kids will go trick-or-treating, they hide the Reese's Peanut Butter Cups because I just can't control myself. Well, when I was a kid, we lived in a much different time than you do. We had a rule at our house that once a week on Saturday nights, you either got a piece of candy or a pop, soda pop. That was it. Okay, now these were different times. Okay, so every Saturday night, Mom and Dad would either give us the Pepsi or she'd let us have some candy. Okay, well, one time when I was a little kid, my mom had to run to the store, and I, was nosing around the house, and in her closet, I saw a bag of, yes, the Holy Grail, Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. And it was open. It was open. And so I'm like, okay, I don't have to open it. It's open. I'm just going to have one. Okay? And so I had one, a blessed Reese's Peanut Butter Cup as a child. And I thought, that was pretty good. And I'm gonna have another one, but then that'll be it. Well, you know where this is going, right? I mean, before it was all said and done, I sat down in my shame as a sinner with little orange wrappers all around me. And I thought as a child, I was probably six, I thought, what have I done? What in God's name have I done? And so I tried to hide the evidence, and I took all the wrappers and the thing, and I went out to the trash can out by the garage and stuffed it in the bottom. And I had this feeling of guilt. Okay, my mom comes home from the grocery store. I'm playing with a truck or something. Well, the end result was I was so consumed with guilt that I approached my parents that night before I went to bed, and I said, I need to tell you something. And they go, what's wrong? And do you remember as a little kid when you would start to cry, and you would cry so heavy that you couldn't breathe? You're like, you went to the store. It was one of those situations, snot in the eyebrow, heaving. And they're like, okay, calm down. And I'm like, I ate all the Reese's Peanut. And I'm like falling on my knees. Have mercy on me, a sinner. If you can find it in your heart, please don't throw me from your presence, right? And, my parents, looking back on it now and having children of my own, they probably laughed when I left the room. But I felt so guilty that I confessed. Now, that's just the way I am. Now, I don't regret that part of me because it's a good accountability, right? It's a good accountability. I will tell you, when I was in high school, whenever somebody would do something and I would do it, I would be the one who got caught all the time. Now, it wasn't cheating. It would be other things, skipping class or whatever. I was always the one who got caught. But that's the sort of person I am. Now, you say, we go back to this cheating example. That was one of the reasons I didn't cheat, probably because I thought I'll be the one guy who gets caught. But I just didn't need to do it. Okay, so going back after this long Reese's Peanut Butter Cup story, and I apologize. If, in fact, 50% of students, and you say 80, you said 50. If, in fact, 50% of students are cheaters, then what you have essentially told me is that out of the 12 of you here, 6 of you are just downright cheaters. That's what you've told me. With your own lips, you've told me that 6 of you are cheaters, right? So would I not be a fool to not put policies and procedures in place to try to eliminate that or decrease it? Now, I personally am not naive enough to think that there's no cheating that ever goes on in my class, okay? I'm not going to be that arrogant. But I will say this. I think that there's less cheating that goes on in my class than in a lot of classes. And I think that's for a variety of reasons. And one of the things I have done at the end of semesters is I've taken an informal, an anonymous poll or questionnaire, and I've said, are you aware of any, and one of the questions I've asked is, are you aware of any cheating? Okay? And I just don't get a lot of, and I think people are pretty honest, they're just checking a box. I just don't think there's a lot of cheating in my classes. I'm not going to say you can't do it. But I put those policies and procedures in place. Now, do you have instructors here in college who do you have classes where there's a lot of cheating that goes on?
Yeah.
Really?
It depends on the class.
Okay.
Even the smartest people I've had cheat in my class, which is kind of why I did it too, but
You're on camera, by the way. You're on camera.
it's not a big deal.
Okay. You say it depends on the class. Talk to me about that, Jake.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you have like an accounting class or a college algebra class, usually they're pretty good about the internal control. But if it's like say my computer class, where the test is you get true false, and of course there's no seating arrangements or versions, there's just all the same, and then you type out like just like a form or something like a document, which you could easily pull up the internet and be like, okay, how do I do this, and then look it up, and then while the teacher's sitting up there on his computer.
Yeah.
You know?
Let me ask you this. Anybody ever been in a class where you weren't cheating and other people were, and it was making you mad?
Mm-hmm.
Why, Allie?
Why did it make me mad?
Yeah.
Well, just because I was working hard and everyone else was just being like peeking at my page, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, no, don't
Yeah.
look.
That's what I do too.
Yeah.
Sometimes teachers will leave, believe it
Yeah.
or not. I've had some teachers that will
In
just
high school,
leave
I haven't
and then come back. So like,
experienced that.
and everyone starts cheating. It's kind
Yeah.
of hard just to sit there and
See,
be
here's
doing
one,
your own thing, and everyone's.
here's one of the biggest lies I think that is said about cheating. What's the catchphrase, the cliche you always hear about cheating?
Cheaters never prosper.
Or this one. Cheaters, they're only hurting themselves. And I think that's total garbage. I think it's total garbage. Would you want to go to a doctor who cheated through medical school?
No.
Would you want to go to a mechanic who had cheated through mechanic school?
No.
Okay. Here's the other thing is, I think it's really discouraging to the honest student, and I do believe there are honest students. I think it's very discouraging to the honest student when they see cheating going on that's not being dealt with. Do you agree? Okay? Because here's the deal. Like it or not, in a way, it matters what everybody else does. I mean, when I grade a test, if everybody does bad, I usually do something to adjust for it. But think about it. If the average score would have been really bad, but because a lot of people cheated, it was good, doesn't that affect you? And I don't do anything? Well, here's the other thing. You don't think you're going to be interviewing for jobs, competing with other college students? Cheating affects everybody, right? And it used to drive me crazy as a college student when I would be in classes and I had worked hard to try to do something, and I would see whole groups of students that were cheating and the teacher seemingly didn't care. And I said at that point, if I ever teach college, I'm going to at least make an effort to try to prevent cheating. And by golly, I did become a college professor, and that's what I do. Now, if your goal is, I'm going to cheat in Krug's class, if your goal is that, then I probably cannot prevent it, okay? Let me see your water bottle for a second. I'm thirsty. No, I'm not. I have heard of students, and I don't want to give you any ideas, I have heard students who have gone so far as to have a water bottle on there, and they have printed their own label. Have you heard of this? And like it's a cheat sheet.
How could you read that?
And they'll put it right there, and for all I know, you're drinking water, and
That's pretty far-fetched, but kind of clever too.
It's
I heard
happened.
people like take off the paper and then write the answers down, then put it back on, and then they look inside
here,
the paper.
I had somebody in a testing center wrote on their shoe answers and got caught.
good for them. I like when they got caught. But here's the I'm always like, if you could only channel that energy for studying, isn't it easier just to learn the stuff? But the people who will go to that length are the exceptions. Here is the deal. Your neighbor who got caught, Anna, do you think if they would have had proper internal control structure in place, do you think she would have perpetrated that crime?
No.
And I bet you the answer is no. She would not have. If you put policies and procedures in place, she would not have done it. I can almost guarantee you. She would not be in prison now. Her husband, and did she have kids, would not be embarrassed by her. This is the legacy she leaves, right? Mm-hmm. When she dies someday, even if she gets out of prison, they're going to see that old lady. She ripped off her company for 200 grand. I mean, that's her legacy, right?
Yeah.
And let me tell you, I hear some of these people that will steal $300,000 and they have to spend a couple years in jail, and people go, $300,000, 2 years in jail? That's a great. Now, here's the deal. They bargain down to 2 years because they have to repay it back, and they come and they take your savings, and they come and take your 401k, and they garnish your wages, and if you don't pay them, they put you back in jail. And then who's also after you? Did you know stolen goods are taxable? Stolen money is taxable. And then you've got the IRS. The IRS is after this lady, I bet you.
Yeah, her family moved. They sold their house. They had to.
It's miserable.
Yeah,
it's
not
not worth
over
it.
Again.
It's not worth it. And as sweet as those Reese's peanut butter cups were, it was not worth the guilt that I have. A lot of people will turn themselves in because they're living with the guilt. Okay? I won't ask you to raise your hands, but let me ask you a question. Okay? Have you guys, if you've ever been in a Best Buy and you see a CD of the new band that you like, you ever taken that CD and you put it in the back of your shirt and you just walk out and you steal it from the company? You ever done that? I would bet of the 12 of you here that probably nobody has done that. Maybe one at the most. But I would say, would you agree the majority of us probably have not done that? Okay, now let me ask you another question, and don't raise your hand. You ever illegally burned a CD for a friend or accepted one? Well, what's the difference? You're stealing music in both incidents. What's the difference? One way, you're probably not going to get caught. The chances of you getting caught if you burn a CD for a friend is just next to zero. But there are policies and procedures to prevent you from walking out the door with a CD stolen from Best Buy. Am I right? Here's what you have to understand. Most of these people would not do the crime if there would have been some policies and procedures in place. I believe that with cheating as well. I believe that if I put in these, I can eliminate a lot of it. Can I eliminate all of it? No, but I can eliminate a lot of it. Okay? And I have people in my class who said, I have cheated in other classes, but I don't cheat in your class. For a variety of reasons. Some of it is they go, I know how you feel about it, and I know you'd be really, really disappointed in me. One of my favorite students of all time, I caught cheating once. I was so disappointed. And I think the look of disappointment that I gave this guy, and he was punished, but I think the look of disappointment I gave him, because we had a good relationship, I think it really bothered him. I hope it did.
I was going to say, I think the look of disappointment that parents or teachers give you is sometimes worse than an actual punishment.
Yeah.
Your parents are like, I'm disappointed in you. It's
and depending on your relationship, here's what you never want to get to, Kara. You don't want to get to the point where your conscience is so hardened that it doesn't bother you. Because I'm going to tell you, those people are not people you want to live by or marry, you don't want these people in your life. We call them sociopaths, right? With a hardened conscience. Now, I always challenge my students. You have to make decisions in your life now as far as what you're going to do, what's okay to do and what's not to do, right? Mom and Dad aren't around as much as they are, right? But I guess I always think this, and maybe this is kind of Pollyanna-esque, but at the end of my life, when I'm 90, I don't want to look back at my life and see a bunch of lying, cheating, and stealing. I just don't want that, okay? Anybody here have kids? You have kids? Sarah, how old are your kids?
My daughter is 2.
Okay, you have a 2-year-old daughter. Let me ask you this. What do you wish for her? Which of these scenarios would you rather choose? That she is an honest, wonderful person her whole life, treats people with respect and honesty and integrity. She's never rich, but she lives in a small house, and that's her life. Or that she's fantastically rich, very powerful, but she's known as a cheat, a steal, cheats on her spouse. You don't want the latter, you want the former. Right. Well, why should you want any less for yourself than you want for your own kids, right? We have to make decisions all the time in life. I just think this is a fascinating area of accounting, okay? But one of the things that you always find when people steal from a company is that there was no policies and procedures in place. There was the opportunity to steal. The other thing that you find, there's 3 things that you find. There's an opportunity to steal. there is usually some sort of financial distress going on in their life, like gambling debt or a drug habit or credit card debt out of control or a husband who lost a job. And there's also the third thing is rationalization. This lady didn't steal all that money at once. She stole a little bit and she said, I'll repay it back. Or then she rationalized it with, you know what, I'm not getting paid enough at this company. Or my boss is a jerk. Or we are fantastic at rationalizing away our evils, aren't we? Okay? You have to be very wary of those sort of things. Here's why this chapter is so important. A lot of you, most of you, will not be accountants in life. Some of you will, but most of you won't. But a lot of you will own or co-own a business. And you need to remember what I'm telling you, or you will get stolen from. You will get stolen from. Okay? I'm just promising you. I've seen too many incidents of it on a personal basis. You will get stolen from. Okay? So have these things and policies in place. Now let's look at a few of these. What are some of the principles of internal control? You need to establish responsibility. Who is in charge of doing what? Okay? Now I know the best way to get nothing done with my two boys at home is to say, I leave for an evening and I say, hey, when I get home, somebody needs to vacuum this rug and the other person needs to change the kitty litter boxes. I'll come home and nothing will be done. But if I say to one son, you are in charge of doing the kitty litter boxes, and my other son, you are in charge of vacuuming the rug, and if you don't do it, I will give you a beating. No, I don't say that. But if I say you're in charge of this and you're in charge of that, by golly, when it's not done, I know who to go to, don't I? Well, that's how businesses have to be. We say you are in charge of opening the mail, you are in charge of making the deposit list, you are in charge of taking the deposit to the bank. Okay? At a bank, you say this is your cash drawer, this is your cash drawer, and this is your cash drawer. You don't just say go to whatever cash drawer you want. No. You stay with the one you're assigned to. Make sense? So we establish responsibilities. We maintain adequate records. Now, regardless of if you are a disorganized person, you have to maintain adequate records for your business. Okay? When I go into a company and I see a payment, I'll say, show me the source documents for this payment. And I want to see the authorizations that were made, and the sign-offs, and the invoice copy, and the receiving report, all that sort of stuff that validates that that payment was made. You've got to have that stuff. A lot of these things you have to have if the IRS ever comes in. Right? You've got to maintain adequate records. Okay? Another thing is you have to insure your assets and bond key employees. Now, most of us know what insuring assets is, right? You probably drove a car to work or to school that was insured, right? What is a bonding of an employee? Do you know? What's a bonding of an employee?
Going out to dinner with him.
What?
Going out to dinner with him.
No, not that, although that might be nice. Bonding an employee is kind of like taking an insurance policy out on an individual. Like, let's say that Sarah is a key employee. Let's say I'm a smaller company and she does a lot with the books and stuff. And I try to divide up responsibilities, but there's a limit to how much I can do it. Well, let's say she's not bonded. Let me tell you a common scenario. Let's say I find out that she's stolen $50,000 from the company. And so I say, Sarah, can you come into my office for a minute? Until she comes in, and I present her with this, and she realizes she's caught. And she cries, oh, and then the tears start flowing, and it's like, I'm sorry, but I've got a 2-year-old daughter, and and I got a husband who's out of work right now, and I've got some debt, and my dad is, all these excuses, right? When I say, well, where's the money now? It's all gone. It's all gone, right? It's not like she's got a big money bag at home with that she can repay me, right? It's gone. So do you know a lot of the times what I will do in this sort of a situation as an owner? Do you know a lot of times what happens? Nothing. I may tell her she has to quit, and she's gone. A lot of times charges are not even pressed. I don't even press charges. Why? Why would I not press charges against this person who stole 50 grand from me?
Costs more money to press charges.
Costs more money to press charges. What'd you say, Kara?
Same thing.
Here's the other thing. I'm not going to get any money back. I'm going to spend more money. And what's the other thing? I'm going to be embarrassed. All my other business owners, it's going to be in the paper that I was stolen from. I was an idiot. What's the point there? I'm not going to get any of this money back. So I give you a slap on the hand and say, ugh. But you know, the other thing is maybe me and your husband play racquetball every week. Maybe we're friends. And maybe I genuinely do like you and feel bad for you. Well, if I would bond you as an employee, that means I would take out an insurance policy on you. And I would pay in some money. And if you stole from the company, let's say I could prove that you stole $50,000, maybe I could recoup 42 of that, 42,000. And then do you think, and then who is in charge of deciding if they're going to press charges? The bonding company. And how do you think that your sad story is going to play with them? It's not so much, is it? So, do you understand what I'm saying? So I recoup some of my losses, but you also know if I get caught, I could be in real serious trouble. And my sad story is not, I'm not going to be able to get off because my husband plays racquetball with Dave. You see what I'm saying? So not only am I an advocate of bonding key employees, but I want you to let them know that they're bonded, right? Because it will be totally out of my hands. I will say this, I'm sorry, but it's not my decision. I will visit you in jail, okay?
Do many businesses do that?
Smart ones do.
Like, is it more the bigger firms that can afford to do
Yeah,
that?
you know, I mean, again, the companies who are smart and have, like casinos, banks, and who know they're exposed. But there's a lot of stupid businesses out there. You can read in the paper about the ones that are getting ripped off. And they all were stupid. Why? Because we're such a family. We don't need to worry about her because she's like a mother to me. I mean, it's the same story over and over again. You know, it's interesting. In my own personal life, I've come across maybe either directly or indirectly heard of about 15 to 20 incidents of somebody stealing from their company. And you know how many of them were women? They were all women.
Seriously?
Every one of them.
A lot of
Yours
people,
is one too, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a woman.
A lot of the people that stole from the grocery stores were women too. Two elderly women got caught. They've been trying to get them for a while, and they finally got them.
You know what this tells you, though? You know what this tells you? Women are a little more evil than no. I'm just kidding. But here's what this tells you: is generally speaking, people are sometimes more afraid of guys than women. Oh, she's so nice, she's so sweet. But I'm just telling. I'm not saying. All I'm saying is from a fact. Every incident I know of was with a woman. Now, I'm not saying women are more evil than men. But what I'm saying is that it doesn't matter who they are. You have to have these policies and procedures in place.
And if they're really nice and they bring you cookies all the time,
Yeah.
like a red flag.
Maybe they're really nice. And sometimes they say, you know what, she doesn't even take vacation. Well, maybe she doesn't take vacation because she doesn't want anybody to check her work. That's why some companies mandate you take a vacation. And some say you have to at least spend a week away from this company.
Yeah.
Because then you're like, oh, I don't want somebody to be going through my stuff. You know? Okay. You want to separate record keeping from custody of assets. I'll bet you $100, Anna, that this individual that you're talking about, she had custody of assets and she also had record keeping of assets. She had custody of cash and she could write checks in the checkbook. She could disperse cash, and she also could make journal entries in regards to cash. I bet you that was the situation. If somebody is in charge of the warehouse, you do not want to put him and her also in charge of making journal entries for the assets in that warehouse. Bad idea. Okay? Most of the times when there's theft, this is the situation. Somebody is in charge of the asset itself and also the journal entries for that asset. So they can steal and make a journal entry. Right? But if I'm in charge of the asset and you're in charge of the record keeping, you've got a little protection there, right? Now, it's very hard if you and I decide we're going to steal from the
I
company.
was going to say, if we're working together.
But here's the reason. Have you ever heard of companies that say, we're not going to hire your family members, we're not going to hire your boyfriend or girlfriend? That's because they don't want to make themselves, they don't want to increase the chance that you're going to do that. If I hire a bunch of sisters or brothers to work together, the chance of them collaborating and stealing are a lot more than if it's strangers. That's why when I do a seating arrangement, I try to put you by somebody you don't know, right? You don't know if that person will turn you in or not.
The grocery store I worked at, my mom also worked there part-time, and she was a cashier, and she couldn't ring me up because that was the store policy. Your family members or anything like that, they can't ring you up. Or,
Actually, yeah, same here.
Yeah, this is the reason. This is the reason. Okay? All right. Divide responsibility for related transactions. In other words, if we get a lot of checks in the mail for payments from customers, instead of putting Jake in charge of the whole thing, I might say, you open up the mail. I want you to photocopy the checks. Anna, you prepare the deposit slip, and Marlon, you take the deposit to the bank. So I've spread it across 4 people, right? So that if you want to steal, you know, if I match your work up, it's not going to match. So a lot of times that will help. Okay, so you divide responsibility for related transactions. Apply technological controls. Now, the oldest technological control is the cash register. Do you ever go to like Taco Bell, or you ever go buy a sandwich at a little sandwich shop and it says, if we do not give you a receipt, your meal is free? That's because they want that transaction in the cash register. I used to work at a Pizza Hut, and the way my boss would steal from the company, we found out, is people would come up, or somebody would come in, and he would take their order for their pizza. He would never enter it into the system. He'd make their pizza, deliver it out to their table, and then he would bank on the fact that they were going to pay him in cash. And sometimes he'd try to get him to pay at the table, and he goes, I'll just bring you your change. And he'd take it out of his own pocket. Or if they came to the cash register, he'd go, the cash register is down right now. I'm going to have to ring you up in the back one. And they don't care. But he was stealing from the company. So that's why a lot of these places say, if we don't give you a receipt, your meal's on us. They're bringing you into their internal control structure. Or do you ever go to Taco Bell, you buy a couple chalupas and a Diet Coke, and it says, you owe $4.12. If you are asked to pay anything else, please call 1-800-TACO-BELL. They're bringing you in. That's a way of doing technology, using technology. Cameras are another way, right? A lot of different ways to do that. And finally, you want to perform independent and regular reviews. Do you think this lady's work was ever being reviewed, Anna, that you talked about?
Probably
Not. Because they trusted her. She's such a dear woman. But if you work at a bank, no matter who you are, every now and then they will come count your cash drawer. They will review your work. You need to review the work of others. Is that right? You need to review the work of others. Okay? These are very important things that I'm telling you guys. It's one of these things that if you remember nothing else about this class, remember this, that I cared about each one of you and I want what's best for you. But if you remember 2 things, remember that, and remember that you need to have internal control structure in place. Okay? You need to do it, or you're going to get stolen from. One last thing I'll close with, and then I'll let you go. I'm kind of, my life as an auditor and these sort of things, my wife will always kind of laugh at me because we'll go to a restaurant and I'll always say, here's how you could steal from this company. She could do that and he could do that. You could steal. They can't catch you. And she's good, like, you're like demented. Well, the way my brain goes is I always think, if I was a criminal, how would I do this? And then I try to prevent that. And that's the way you got to think too. But I'll go into a business and I'll think. And here's what I found. If somebody can be stealing from this company, somebody is stealing from this company. Just guarantee it. Okay? All right, Marlon.
That's why no matter how much security you have, there's always ways around it. People
There is. However, again, this situation right here, Marlon, if they would have had policies and procedures in place, they would not have lost that money. You're never going to eliminate everything, but you can decrease it quite a bit. Instead of losing $500,000, maybe you lose 15 or 20. Okay? Okay, I want you to do exercise 8.1 and exercise 8.2 for homework. exercise 8.1 and exercise 8.2 for homework. You with me? All right, see you guys.